Guys Talking Ball podcast back. A two week episode this week. We got our NDSU preview today, and we got our wrap up our college football and AFC and NFC conf or division predictions tomorrow. But today is the task at hand. We've got a preview outlook of the 2025 NDSU Bison here, the 10-time FCS national champions, going for one for the toe here. That's going to take place down in Nashville this year instead of Frisco. A little bit of a change up here, but I think it appeared some people were getting tired of Frisco, so they decided to change it up and go to Nashville and maybe create a little bit more juice back, which we've kind of seen even last year, where we've seen NDSU fans kind of more migrate north towards the dome, see a little bit more juice in the dome. But to really help bring back the football season, had to bring in the big guns. We had to bring in our good friend, recurring guest. I think he might actually be in the lead or tied for the lead of most recurring guests on the show here, most appearances here. It's our good friend Zach Willis. Zach, welcome on. How's it going? How's the summer been?
Good, man. It's good to be back. I need like an award to hang back here or something, a plaque to commemorate. And then if somebody wants to take the title from me, we got a dual fist fight. That's the only
That's
way
right.
Get
That's
the Three Guys Talking Ball most recurring guest plaque from me.
I could probably get ChatGPT to draw up some type of banner that you can hang and we can print and send to
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, man. Summer's been good. It's we were just talking before we started rolling here. It's like sacrilege to like count the days on summer, especially up here, knowing what's coming. But man, like you start seeing training camp videos, and I don't know if you've noticed it, but this trend of like tracking stats of training camp practices of like Jalen Hurts went 12 of 20 with 2 touchdowns today. It's like, guys, do you have nothing better to do? Like, why not actually learn and break down, learn what you're watching with the position rather than counting skeleton 7-on-7 stats? I don't know. But anyway, I digress. I'm already ranting. This is good. It's the pads are popping. I was up at practice last week, and man, I'm just ready for football season. I'm ready for 60 degrees. I'm ready for tailgating. I'm ready for all that stuff.
I have too. We got our first game on Friday. High school season kicks off in North Dakota, so we got that. That's it was a hot one at practice today. That was for sure. But
a hot
excited.
Tuesday, nothing better.
A hot Tuesday.
Yeah.
But the there's been quite a bit of rumblings. The been busy couple of days as far as NDSU goes. They've announced they're going to be playing Montana State in Vegas in 27. They have a home and home with Incarnate Word scheduled for, I believe it's 26 and 29 or 28. I think it's 28.
28.
Okay. And then along with some potentially new jerseys that'll be debuting against SEMO. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but I got to ask you, Zach. So when NDSU played Incarnate Word back in 2014 for the second time game day came, would you ever envision Incarnate Word building themselves up to a program to where NDSU would be willing to go down to San Antonio to play a game?
No, honestly, and that's a testament to them. And I mean, just look at the talent of players that they've had come through, and like they were pretty damn close to sticking the Bison up in the playoffs a couple of years too. So a formidable FCS opponent, which is cool. An opponent that's rising to that level on not to get too doom and gloom, but on a level that you kind of wonder what the future is going to look like in 5 years. But teams like Incarnate Word stepping up their game really helps. The other part is I wonder what the business considerations are. If it was more of that, like I know, it's like a soft power thing. Like when we go play games in Minneapolis at Target Field or at US Bank the last few years, it's a marketing thing. Here's the biggest, best thing we have to put out as a university. Come watch us, and hopefully you want to come to school here. So I'd be interested to pick the admin's department's brain if this was just strictly a football decision or if it's like, hey, this is a market that we can tap into for something.
Yeah, so I have a good story. I don't know if I've ever told you this one. I've told a few people here, and I think I've told it here on the podcast. But so I was the officials host when Incarnate Word came the first time, and they had this old coach. I can't remember his name, but he coached for the Raiders. Like he came in, he wore like a suit and tie. He was wearing a Super Bowl ring, and before every game, coaches meet with officials, and this and a lot of them, like these coaches, they're very, very what would be the right word, paranoid about everything. So 90% of the time I never even got to really sit in on the meeting, nor did I really want to, just because, well, probably wouldn't be a good look. But there's a few stories that I can remember where I got shooed away. I remember the Montana coach shooed me away. The Indiana State guy. What's that?
On brand for Montana.
Yeah. What was the guy? But then I talked to him later. It wasn't Bob Stitt. It was the guy before him. It was the old dude, and he was actually really friendly after he came and talked to me for a while. Yeah. And then when they played him in the playoff game, the Stitt year, he was at the game, and I was like, "Oh, hey, coach, good to see you." And he remembered my name somehow, and I was like, "That's impressive." But like it was basically like they were gonna go meet with Kleiman, and as he was walking off the field, they stopped and he's like, "Hey, yeah, we can have our meeting now." And he's like, they're like, "Is there anything different or anything that, we should be alerted for?" Well, if we score, we kind of like to do it, because at the time it was like when Oregon would like run over and they would count the numbers. And if they had a favorable number, they would go for or throw it. If we do that, we'll maybe go for 2 depending on the numbers, then bring everybody back in. And then he goes, "But I don't know if we're even going to score. So you guys might not even have to worry about that."
See, his name's Larry Kennan. I just looked him up, if that's the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
And the tie. That's a heck of a look.
And he had sunglasses on too, I believe.
Yeah.
Inside.
That's awesome. See, like, unless you're around it, like even in that scenario, better than like the average person how insane college football coaches are. Like during fall camp, our last week or second to last week, we would have officials come either from the conference or like the Big Ten or some, well-versed, good refs, and they'd come like ref a scrimmage. But before that, they would break down all the rule changes. And you could just see them, like when my first year was when they instituted like the first crackdown on cut blocks. So you just saw these guys like, all right, go through our presentation. These are the updates. And just like praying that the assistant coaches and the head coaches didn't have questions, because they knew it was going to be 45 minutes apiece of Connor Riley chewing their ass preemptively, knowing these guys probably weren't even going to call one of our games. But he's like, "So if I do this, you're not going to call it?" Just like raking these guys over the coals. And especially like you're saying, as you get closer to game day and on game day, the most like, I don't even know how to describe them. Feral, primal people on the face of the planet as a head football coach. And then you see them after, and the come down must just be insane because they're so calm. I mean, depending on what the result of the game was, but they're all so calm. Like you said, they remembered your name. "Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. How's the family?" All this stuff. And it's like, you were just ripping my ass 20 minutes ago. What are you talking about?
I remember Bubba Schweigert was really friendly. Stiegelmeier played the happy-go-lucky grandpa. Farley, that guy still scared me. Well, actually, so the year that the last year I did it was 15, so they came to the Dome twice. The first year, like they were walking in, Farley was leading them in, and I was like, "Hey, coach," and he just kind of looked at me, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, never mind." And then in the playoff game, he was like, it was like a completely different, because like at that point, like he was kind of the face of coaches for the Missouri Valley, where it was like, that's a guy that never smiled. He's just intense all the time. He never smiled on his wedding day even. And he comes into the he comes in like smiling, happy-go-lucky, came up. He's like, hey, do you know where I could get some coffee? And I was like, oh, I'll go see what I can find. So I went and got him. Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And it was like, oh, so this guy is somewhat has a personal side to him, but
He is a human.
Yeah.
Oh,
Joe Glenn
man.
was a really nice guy too.
Yeah.
But
that 15 regular season UNI game does not get enough respect. I know jumping into what might be a topic, but McFeely ranked the all-time games of the Dynasty era. And I can't remember where that ranked or if it was ranked, but there's a lot of context behind that game and certain plays that it came down to. And then obviously you just look at the box score of when that last score was, and that's an all-time NDSU football Bison game.
I look at that game and I kind of just look at that as like the random guys catching touchdown games, because I think Jed Resear caught a touchdown, Jeff Illies caught a touchdown, then that was the Darius Shepard coming out party. Those two touchdowns. It was one of the loudest times I've ever heard the Dome, and that was really like the two touchdown passes by Carson to Shepard were like, oh, this guy's going to be a top. At that point, it was like he's going to be a top 3-round draft pick.
Yeah,
and just those throws just perfectly dropped into the bucket for Shepard and as a redshirt freshman. But yeah, let's go ahead.
I was just gonna say I still don't know like how the physics of that last throw to Darius worked. Whereas literally it was into like triple coverage, and it wasn't even like Darius had to go make a play. It just hit him in the chest between those guys. There was no option to drop it. It just hit him perfectly where absolute seed. I was on a recruiting visit with Alex Talley, who threw at NDSU. Heck of a football player that I played with at West Fargo High, and he let me tag along for one of his recruiting trips. And I think we were like 8 rows up from where that happened. That was pretty unbelievable.
I was in the opposite. I was in where I would always stand would be like right next to the visitors' locker room. Mm-hmm. And so it was in the opposite corner, and I was selfishly like pissed off. Like I could have gotten some serious airtime, because the year before that, the Wentz to Urzendowski touchdown in the playoff game was right in front of my face, and I got a bunch of airtime going nuts.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
But yeah, you brought up McFeely's 75 games of the Division I era, and it was an incredible. I haven't gotten a fully deep dive in. I just kind of looked at the list. What were your overall thoughts on that?
I'm gonna pull it up here. Sorry. Just in general, I marveled at the effort that had to have taken to compile and go through, and then whatever criteria that you go about to sit down and rank 75 games is very, very impressive. But I understand the love for the FBS games, but they are in general a take them or leave it. Like it's a win-win. You either got paid and got national exposure, or you beat these guys. And obviously the benefits come from that. But that 2019-2020 national championship against JMU, I don't know if I've ever seen a better football game, just because of the football that I like. Like it was an absolute rock fight against two teams full of NFL players, and it came down to James Hendricks, boy wonder in the end zone to close it down on Ben DiNucci. I have it pulled up if you want me to roll through the 10, and then we can discuss top 10.
Yeah, let's do it.
So number 10 is 2011 NDSU 37, Minnesota 24. Go ahead.
That was kind of that was right when that was Jerry Kill's first year. That was I think that was after NDSU. They challenged them in 06, and then they beat them in 07. From just the perspective that I remember going into that game thinking NDSU was gonna win. There wasn't a doubt, just because of the state of the program in Minnesota and the way NDSU was rolling. Because that would have been the year of their first national title. Just the way they were rolling, the way they finished their season ended in 2010. You knew that team was going to be good, and going into that Minnesota game, there was no doubt that they weren't going to win. I remember it being on Big Ten Network, so I couldn't watch it, but I remember following it on my phone back, and I just remember like the end of the half, and I'm like, they're like, Marcus Williams interception, tossed to Colton Heath. I was like, wait, what happened? Trying to figure out, like, because it didn't do a great job. It was like, but they got to pick six. They're up 2 scores now.
Exactly. Well, and then, I mean, that was one of the more unbelievable plays I've ever seen. But you add into all this other stuff, there were a lot of guys that might be positionally at NDSU on the Mount Rushmore that got passed over by the Gophers in their recruiting. And there was just something extra to that. I mean, I was 11 years old, so I don't really remember my in-depth analysis of this game, but it was almost just like at least like we were going into an even opponent. It didn't have the hype that the other FBS games did. And then Marcus Williams somehow threw a bounce pass on a lateral to Colton Eagle on the last play of the half. And then just like so many instances in games in this list, you just like, that was the linchpin. That was the hidden play that, that is really going to tip this one over the edge. All right. That was number 10. Number 9, Ball State, 2006.
Fighting Brady Hoax.
I have no recollection of this game.
I remember the only thing that I really remember about that was like the next year Ball State went basically undefeated until the MAC championship. It was a pretty solid MAC team in Ball State. And I remember also a game that wasn't televised. This was before we're really showing our age here by talking about how didn't get to watch every game.
Yeah.
I remember just following the ticker, like anytime it got to MAC, I was like, NDSU, come on, this needs to speed up. Like, or before this was, I think this was before we even had like high speed internet at my parents' house. But that's how long ago this game was. But then I just remember them seeing they won. I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. They beat a FBS team.
Yeah, and the quote, the blurb that he threw in here was from Coach Roll, and he said the first FBS win, it was important. So, I just want to rattle these off, and then we can discuss, because there's some talking points I need to discuss here. Number 8, NDSU versus Butler 2019, the Target Field game. Number 7,
I was there.
NDSU Illinois State 2015. Number 6, NDSU Delaware State 2013. Number 5, NDSU Georgia Southern 2012. Number 4, NDSU Sam Houston State 2012. Number 3, NDSU Kansas State in 2013. Number 2, NDSU Iowa 2016. Number 1, NDSU Minnesota 2007. Like I said, I'm not going to knock the hustle because of how much effort I know this took, but there are some games on here that, outside of some reaches and justification, should not be in the top 10.
The Delaware State, the only reason that is on as high as it is because of game day. But that might have,
correct.
They would have lost to the team NDSU played the week before in Ferris State. That's how bad that Delaware State team was.
Yes. The Butler game, maybe up there for one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I played a lot in that game, as you can tell by the score. Also, fun fact of that game, the line was 46.5. So whoever took Butler to cover that lost on the hook. We won by 47.
Yeah.
Number 7, looking in retrospect, NDSU Illinois State in 2015 was probably the better national championship between that and the 2020 JMU game. that was, I mean, again, context matters in all this stuff. And Illinois State might have been the better team, but it was just like the way it went all the way down. And it's Erzendowski, and man, there's so much. One of my all-time favorite pictures too, when they scored that last touchdown, everybody celebrating in the end zone.
I think that because I think our good friend Trevor Gebhardt broke his PR in the vertical jump on that in that picture you can see.
He went from 1 phone book to 2 phone books. Yes.
Yeah.
Number 6.
That one.
NDS. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the talent, like between Trey Roberson, Marshawn Coprich, James O'Shaughnessy, I believe there was a bachelor that was on that team, or he might have been playing there the year before. But
let me see.
But that was kind of a weird game, because it felt like for most of the game that I remember when I watched it live, like NDSU controlled, and then all of a sudden Illinois State found a way to hang around. They had that big play on the sideline to O'Shaughnessy, and then it kind of flipped the momentum. NDSU was still able to move the ball, but it was like, oh wow, they're actually behind now. And then they go down the field and score. But that was just a incredible back and forth game, and two North Dakota boys making plays that gave them the lead and then sealed it. Esley stealing the ball away at the end.
I think Esley was Jacksonville State the year after.
No. I thought it would have.
Colton Underwood was the bachelor contestant, by the way.
Yeah. Was he on that team or no? Was he a year after? Oh, he was.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's see here. Anyway. Nope, you're right. Esley had a pick in that one. Andre Roberson is slept on in the conversation of greatest players NDSU's ever played.
Yes. Yeah, that guy was a stud. I mean, he was the starting quarterback at Indiana the year before.
Yeah, and that last scramble he had, or the big one, whenever it was, he looked like he was jogging compared to everybody. Yeah. It's almost like,
yes,
this is dramatic, but it's like kind of that sensation when you see Lamar and you're like, he's not even running that hard, but he's just gapping people. That's kind of what he was like.
Yes. He's just galloping.
Exactly.
Just that smooth runner.
Yep. Oh, man. I think the Kansas State game is more important than the Iowa game. That was
I would agree.
That. And then Delaware State NDSU at number 6 is also silly. But again, I'm not knocking the hustle. This is a very hard thing to do. So, but
it is. But
do you have any off the top of your head that you think fit in here?
The 2013 NDSU UNI game probably has to be up there.
Yep.
Because I know we did this on last year. We ranked the top 5 NDSU games when we were in college. And maybe because this might be a little bit the Georgia. Well, you mentioned the Georgia Southern game in 12.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to really, outside of that Delaware State game, there's really not a whole lot. I would probably put the NDSU Kansas State game at 1.
Yeah.
I do understand a bit of his reasoning for why the Minnesota game was at 1, and this weekend, and this is just kind of how much of a sicko I am, is once I looked through kind of the article, and I was like, I wonder if this game's on YouTube, and sure enough, it was. So I spent my Saturday watching that game, and that Minnesota defense was abysmal. I also didn't realize that was also Minnesota came into the year into that game like the 18th ranked offense in all of college football at that time. Yeah. And Tyler Roll just ran through that Minnesota defense like a hot knife through butter.
Got on Sports Center.
He did. And it was also another game. It was on Big Ten Network. So I didn't get to watch it. I just remember anytime the Big Ten ticker would come on, it's like, all right, where are we at? Where are we at? And somehow they found a way to, they ended up pulling away. And watching the Craig Bowl get interviewed after the game, where it was like, yeah, well, we're going to have a tough game next week. This is cool, but we're on to the next one, which is really like, just had the biggest win of his career, and he's already talking about whoever they were playing the next week.
That's a CEO,
but
man.
That's why he should get a statue built out of outside the dome someday.
I forgot about this. So, Tim Brewster. That's a name that will connect with a lot of Bison fans. Added motivational fire by referring to the Bison as the little guys in green. Because I don't know if you remember, he might have been gone by the time kickoff came, but he was on the Colorado staff recently in the last couple of years.
Yes, I do. I think he was on their staff last year.
I think so too.
Occasionally, I would pop into the Colorado videos of it, and he would be talking, and you could just be like, you could tell that guys were just turned off by him. They didn't want to listen to him.
Yeah. He doesn't have the juice.
No.
It's fun to go back down memory lane because I've experienced all of these in some form or fashion. He's either as a fan or a player. So
yeah, well, and talking about me being a sicko is last night while I was getting stuff ready for the show, I was on YouTube and kind of just scrolling, trying to see what was on the herd, whatever. And one video ended and it popped up the 2012 NDSU versus Wofford game. And that was an ugly game.
The Grant Olson game.
Yeah, the Grant Olson game. That was an ugly game, but if you like defensive slugfest, that's the team. That Wofford team. I mean, they had some just soup cans as running backs that just rolled down the field.
Yeah, it's like they were like the service academies, except they didn't have to like promise to go fight in a war after.
Yeah,
they were fired up to run the triple option. And they were good at it.
Mm-hmm.
That was always the worst week.
And it got
of Scout Week. If we had, we played Wofford once when I was on Scout team, and then whoever else we had in triple option, and like trying to simulate enough of a cut so these guys could get a look and know what it felt like, but also not blow out somebody's ACL. It was always a brutal week.
Who would have been some of the D linemen you would have had to simulate cutting back then when you were playing?
Blake Williams, Tangway, Steidel. I think Greg was hurt, but I mean that's Derek Tuska. That's some real animals playing D line.
Yeah. I was the same class as Nate. I know Nate pretty well, or did know. I haven't talked to him in quite a few years, but he's a good dude. Definitely wouldn't want to face him. Go up next to him or Steidel. Those were some him Steidel and what was Brian Schatz.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Tangway and Steidel were like the good cop, bad cop of the older D tackles. When I was a rook, you had the grizzly bear you didn't mess with, and then you had the guy you pulled to the side and asked questions of, and that was Stides.
Yeah. But then you get out of football, and he's the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that list, the 2012 NDSU Georgia Southern game is all-time classic. Just sitting on your hands and knees. Todd Monken was the coach. Now he's at Army.
Yep. I think it's a little bit of recency bias, but whatever this sparks of, if Coach Polasek is the quarterback that takes, or is the head coach that takes us to the next level, whatever that looks like in this, what's soon to be a completely restructured FBS, we might look at that Montana State national title under the lights on a Monday night as cracking that top 10.
I would agree. And I mean, that was a tremendous game. It was like, oh, it's the same old Montana State. And then all of a sudden, oh, well, then NDSU just found punched back and never, as tight as that game got, I never felt like that NDSU was going to lose. It just felt like they were going to find a way to make a play and execute it when they had to. Just because how much senior class, because I think there's an argument to be made that this previous senior class, there's nobody that's gone through more than what that class has gone through, whether it be the record against SDSU, losing to UND for the first time, going under a head coaching change, being gutted by the portal, everything that led up to it, and then still people saying the dynasty is dead, still finding a way to pull out a national title.
I believe their freshman years were COVID too.
Yeah. I didn't even get to that either.
Yeah.
The one game they got to play in the fall.
Dude, miserable.
Yeah. Now, did you play in that 2020 game against Central Arkansas?
I was suited. I did not play because it was Carson Schoning's last game, so they were just going to let him run the whole time. Yeah, but
gotcha.
Yeah, it was a weird deal, man. It really was. It was like, what are we doing this for? And I understand, like, you're there to play football, but also everybody else in the country is not playing football. So, the other part of that too is the athletic department, we checked a lot of people that are talking a big game about anytime, anywhere, any place, because we were calling everyone. And I know that when they saw 701 come through on the caller ID, answers were not getting picked up because we tried to play everybody.
I remember that. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day, oh wow, NDSU is actually gonna have a game this fall.
Yeah.
And I'm still upset about that the Oregon game that never was, because NDSU would have walked into Autzen and would have won that game. I fully believe that.
Not only that, I think that 2020 team would have been the best team ever fielded at NDSU.
I would agree with that. Which also, I guess I'll bring up pose this question is of the Division I teams, which team would you say is the best of the Division I era of the national titles?
I mean, this is a pain point, not really a pain point, but a point that we all argue about, and it's all just us who are the old heads now arguing with older heads. I mean, everybody says 2013, and like, how could I really argue that? But if you just go through, and again, it's different times of how small school guys are being recruited and all this, or how scouted. You go to 2019, there's dudes that are still playing in the NFL right now that are on that football team. And the thing about 2020 is they would have just had another year of football behind them if we got that full season, and that team, I think, would have been the best ever. But everybody, they can get mad at me all they want, but I don't know who was beating that 2019. Like, it's just a matchup nightmare, man. Like, I get there are a lot of killers, a lot of guys that, like, I had their jerseys or had pictures of them in my room because that team was so good. But what I saw 2019 up close, I don't know how any of those teams would have beat them.
Yeah, the talent, that 2013 team was, they were just guys that just always never lost that chip on their shoulder of like they were under recruited, undervalued. You go and ask anybody on that team, every one of them had an edge of what kind of put them to set them over the top to really get the best out of them. That they just found a way and they just weren't going to lose.
And they still have that when you talk about that team.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, like, I love Colton. What is Colton Heagle doing about Christian Watson? Like, I know they had CJ and Marcus, but like, are they going to lock everybody down the entire time? And then, okay, Go play man coverage, keep your safeties high, and then which one of those linebackers is tackling Trey Lance sideline to sideline? I love Grant Olson. Is he doing it? I don't know.
I wouldn't count out Carlton Littlejohn. That dude, that is a scary man right there.
For sure. Was Travis Beck playing in 2013?
Travis Beck was on that team. Yep.
That might be the one that can chase down Trey side to side.
Speaking of Travis, going back to that Watford game, Travis Beck had the best throw of any Watford player in that game, because I forgot about it. The punch that he on their quarterback where he just punched it out and it went like 30 yards downfield.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, phrase this carefully because I have a lot of friends involved in both parts of this scenario, but the 2013 team just had like a toughness to them that would they're definitely not. You might outskill them, you might out athleticism, but you're just not gonna. They're hard to kill, But man, talk about firepower. That 2019 team was something else, and like we'd roll out Delta formation, and it was Dimitri Williams, Ty Brooks, and Adam Cofield with Trey Lance in the backfield. What can be done about this?
And Hunter Lupke was on that roster as well.
Right. Then when you got tired of banging your head against Lipke, we'd throw the actual meat stick in and have Garrett Malmstrom kick out power for 10 plays. Oh, man. This team was... It all changes when you go through like historical context, but both teams were unbelievable. And then I just look at the offensive line too of 19. And the fun part about 2020 is if you look at, there were guys on the 3 deep that are now playing in the NFL of that offensive line, which is unbelievable. But that's it was an embarrassment of riches with those two teams when you go through and look at what we had. Had Gindorf and Babich. I don't know. Had Tuska coming off the edge with McCormick, and man, good times, memory lane going down with those guys. I'll look at the 2013 roster though. Sorry, I'm your show.
Cole Jurek, Kyle Mann. That was my freshman year at NDSU. Le'Veon Perry, Danny Lupke, Brian Schatz, Cole
I'm not
Jurek.
saying it wouldn't be a dogfight, man, but I don't know.
Dudzik, goal.
Trevor Gebhardt,
don't forget. Linebacker. Yep. Trevor Gebhardt, Nate Moody, the playmaker.
The playmaker.
Kerry Woods.
Yeah. I want to go by position here. So Marcus and CJ, Jordan Champion, and a very young Trey Dempsey. Good DB room.
I had Trey redshirt that year. That's right. Yeah. Trey didn't even play.
And Brian Shepard.
Chris Board. Yeah, one of the most underrated NDSU players of all time is Brian Shepard.
Absolutely. Came from Omaha, I believe, when they shut their program down.
Yep. That's right.
Here's the DNs for you. Kyle Emanuel, Mike Hardy, Cole Jurek, Jeremy Gordon, a freshman, Brad Ambrosius, Bryce Mesner is still on the D-line, Brian Schatz, Lavoie, Tangway wearing number 62, Levon Perry, Grant Morgan, Danny Lukey, Austin Farnloff. Some studs there, man. Oh,
yeah. I remember Danny Lukey was one of those guys that would come in and situationally. I remember he played his best game in the negative 34-yard rushing game against South Dakota State. I remember that game. He just lived in the backfield. Like it was like a 3rd and short. They tried running it, and Zenner got nothing.
Underrated all-time Bison, just by name and look and play of or style of play. Andrew Grothman.
And
then Andrew Bonnet.
Fullback.
Andrew Bonnet was decapitating people. Had Dudzik, Adam Keller, sneaky underrated part of that team. Esley Thornton, Grant Olson, Carlton Littlejohn, MJ Stumpf, Freshman Pierre G. Tucker, Nick DeLuca, who played as
Nick
a freshman, I
DeLuca.
believe. Yep.
Yeah, same with Pierre.
Travis Beck. Yeah, man. It's
Also, Travis Beck, stud. Also, the first time I've ever seen a blown Achilles in person. I remember it was against Youngstown State, and all of a sudden I remember like the play stopped and he's on the ground and he has his leg up and his Achilles is just hanging like that. I was like, oh yeah, he's not playing this year, the rest of the year.
Yeah. Ryan Drevlo.
Also a guy you do not want to mess with.
Yeah. I mean, evidence of that to not do that. And then the O-line also good. Guys that like didn't have the notoriety, the shine as some of the guys that I played with, but I mean it's Tyler Gimmestad, Cooner, Jeremy Kelly, Jabba, Zach Johnson, Jack Plankers, and Landon Leckler, Joe Haig, Zach Zemer, Billy Turner. Not bad in the Ram room.
No.
Sophomore Carson Wentz.
That's a pretty salty bunch.
For sure. Okay.
Cole Davis.
If we want to talk running backs, it's Derek Lang, Sam O'Jury, John Crockett, Chase Morlock.
Yeah.
One of might be one of the better recruiting classes right there. All those freshmen.
Yeah. Those are some good players. I can't remember if there were any receivers in that group that really came anywhere or did any. I don't think there was.
Vra.
Zach Vra, yep.
Let me go.
Trevor Gephardt.
Got your answer right. We gotta hope Trevor.
Oh, what was his name?
Get too cocky.
What was the guy's name? He had dreads. I think he had like one catch.
Nate Moody.
Isaiah Franzen. He didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Dan. Yep. Yep. I knew Dan.
Eric Perkins. Love Perk. Ryan Smith was still there.
Sneaky. How do I forget about Ryan Smith?
Yeah, I don't know.
Weapon.
That's bad by both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's Jeff Ilias,
Kevin Vodland,
Connor Wentz, Luke Albers. Hell of a crew that 2013
Fisheries and wildlife major. I remember the broadcast always, they were obsessed with that major. Oh, yeah. It's a touchdown to the fisheries and wildlife major, Luke Albers.
Which I don't think Luke does anything related to that. Which is very funny. In fact, I'm pretty positive he doesn't, but yeah. Let's see here. Yeah. Bachelor's degree in fisheries and wildlife management and a minor in criminal justice. Good stuff.
There you go. That is. But we've gone down memory lane. We're 45 minutes in. Haven't even talked about the current Bison roster here. So we'll start talking a little bit about that. We'll start on the offensive side. It was just announced Cole Payton is going to be the starter. A guy that a lot of people thought was going to be the Trey Lance replacement. Miller said the hell he is. So good for Cole, who's waited his turn. He's played in spots. I think it's fair to ask. We haven't seen him throw the ball a whole lot. We've seen him do it in spots. He's showing some promise. He's definitely showing he's got the arm. But we're going to see how he commands the huddle, if he's able to do more than just throw the ball a mile. I know Zach, he's gonna have receivers to throw to. There's an embarrassment of riches in that receiver room. We talked about the NDSU team having an embarrassment of riches of the O-line. There's some dudes, and it's a deep room too, that if one or two get hurt, there's plenty of talent in that room. Like the guys that I have written down right now are obviously Bryce Lance, Mekhi Collins, Chris Harris, Raja Nelson, Jackson Williams. But you go deeper in They got the guy from Silas from Colorado State. Kate Osterman, who was Mr. Football, played a transfer from Minnesota and had a couple of good catches. I believe, against East Tennessee State. And then also John Gores from the Shanley product as well. Yep. But you've been out at the you've gotten to go to a couple of practices here. What have you seen from Cole Payton?
Well, man, it's always hard to tell. I think the thing that we're really going to have to work through is what's his leash, right? And I'll never sit here and call for a guy's job too early, but how much of this is going to be nerves of like, all right, I'm the guy and I have to run this entire offense? Because one thing I know will not happen, despite the ability to, NDSU can scheme up anything that they want given their personnel. But what is he going to have the full keys to the offense? When Trey Lance came in 19, things were pretty pared down because we didn't know how much he could handle. And as we went through the season and we saw he can handle more and more, you saw the result. And he's won the Walter Payton and the Jerry Rice and then a national title. I think Cole has that capability. And when you just meet him too, he's like out of a comic book, just like the All-American quarterback that you expect, just good head on his shoulders. It's just going to be interesting I think, to answer your question about practice, I only pay attention when they run the football, but I was seeing a lot of completed passes. And what is really the more important thing in the NDSU offense is command of getting everybody set up, shift trade motion, setting protections the correct way. A lot of it is dependent on the quarterback. So if you take care of that stuff, and along with that comes good scheming, good play calling, and knowing what the defense is doing, the other pieces just start to fall into place. So the real question is it going to be closer to what we saw with Trey, of can throw it a mile but can also feather things in and layer and command the offense? Or, and I'm not speaking negatively about him, is it going to be the Quincy Patterson, yes, freak athlete, can run around everybody on the field, but some deficiencies in the passing game?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm also very curious to see how much they utilize his legs. I think that's more so a question of how comfortable they feel throwing the backup, whoever that may be. I believe it's going to be Nathan Hayes. Is that,
yeah.
Did I have that name right?
Yep.
How comfortable they feel throwing him out there if Cole Payton were to get hurt. Because you hear it very often. Sometimes your strengths aren't able to get utilized to their max potential because of what you have behind you. If we're going down memory lane here, I'll bring up a guy that a lot of Bison fans probably have a sour taste in the mouth when I bring up this guy's name, but a guy like a Nate Mertens, who was athletic, kind of similar to Cole Payton, deficiencies in the passing game, like to give the ball to the other team, probably could have used his legs a little bit more, but there was nothing really behind him to where the coaching staff would have felt comfortable putting him out there. I think, and obviously this is two different states of the program. I feel like NDSU is recruited well enough to this point where I think, they'll be able to kind of maximize whoever that quarterback is, because they do the double reps. And I think, that's why they've had such seamless transitions from Jensen to Wentz to Stick to Lance to Miller.
Yeah. Well, I think to ease any nerves, Cole Payton's been the heir apparent of being the quarterback at NDSU since he got here. I mean, he got here at 6'3", 225, and you saw the videos. You're like, this is the guy. The fact that there was ever even a competition, and again, might have been just to keep Cole hungry throughout this whole thing. I don't think that's a concern. But Nathan Hayes played, and Nathan Hayes played well last year.
Yes.
I don't think there'd be that much of a drop off between the two, which again is champagne problems where guys are fighting and clawing to find one quarterback to play going into the season that they can trust, and a lot of them don't find that guy. We have two that I'd feel very comfortable with, and God forbid we lose two. I think Trey Drake can step in and play. And like you said, that's the fun part. It's a development program, and with that comes the pressure that it's this weird thing, right? Like the pressure to say, like, next man up, I'm ready to go when it's my turn. But also, as you saw with Easton when he stepped in for Carson, the pressure just shuts off, and you just have to operate. You have to go play football, and that's really what I think sets them apart, and how we do things, because we have three guys that could go play. And as you're talking about, the talent around them can really make up for a lot if everybody else needs to step up, just like that offense did for Easton when he came in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even the running back room too. You look at, I mean, losing Marty Brown does hurt. But I mean, they still bring back Barika Penu, who's been a solid player the last 3 or 4 years. And then they bring they seem very high on Miles Money Mitchell, who was here in the spring. And then the transfer from Kennesaw, DJ Scott, as
That
well.
kid's real.
And a guy that nobody's really talking about that was a really good player for him when he was healthy a couple of years ago was Owen Johnson. He got hurt, I believe, against UND. He didn't play at all last year, but you know, before he got hurt, it kind of almost felt like he was the one that was kind of going to really taking some carries away from guys in that 23 season.
Yep.
And just kind of one of those guys. He could be that Derek Lang type that comes in on third down, and he's that role player that he's been here long enough. He's done everything the right way, and the coaches are gonna, I think, at NDSU, there's not a coaching staff that rewards players for doing that more than what NDSU does. And a guy that's gonna do whatever you tell him to do, he's gonna go and do it.
Yeah. I think Owen Johnson he's a nice switch up, man. Like I saw DJ Scott at practice, and kind of that it's not what we've been missing per se, because we've had a lot of good running backs, but like the prototypical running back, like he's long-legged, runs behind his pads, not afraid to stick it between the tackles, but also I watched him hit inside zone and then just be 10 yards past the safeties before they knew it hit him on the first play of team. So it's stuff like that where you see the pop. And I think, man, I could be wrong of forgetting guys, but like a real burner at running back, the real answer is probably John Crockett, but you could say Bruce too. We haven't had that guy that has a juice to run by people in a long time.
And I'll even say John Crockett didn't get that until his last year, because if you go back and watch any games from 12 and 13, where there were a lot of times where he broke free and ended up getting caught from behind. And then in 14, those two big runs he had against Iowa State, that was really where it was like, oh, he found a different gear this year, whatever. And I remember watching a newscast, and they did a spotlight on Jim Kramer, the strength coach. And I remember him saying, he's like, come on, John, you can't be going half like that. You want to get caught like you did last year? And it was like, oh, all right, well. And then so I was like, that's something I'm going to watch. And he didn't get caught from behind hardly ever that year.
He's got a funny way to motivate people. It's
yeah,
you know, a lot of guys, it's one thing for the running backs, it's not getting hawked. But I mean, if you really want to dive into it, it might be 2009 with Papa Shaw. I'm just like
underrated Bison too, that nobody talks about.
I
stuck behind two really good all-time NDSU backs in Roll and Kyle Steffes,
and still ran for 1,300 yards his senior season.
When they went 3-9.
Yeah. 1,400 yards and 16 touchdowns. Not bad on the resume, but would have had even better career. I mean, 07 and 08, it's 530 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 601 yards with 2 touchdowns. So, like, good stat lines for being the number 3. But he also, in the realm of the conversation, had the ability to make people look like they're standing still.
Mm-hmm.
Ty Brooks thinks he has that. He doesn't. Never did.
Also, one of my favorite guests on your show to listen to is Ty Brooks.
He's the best.
But let's talk your former position, former room, the Rams, the O-line. Yep. Believe they got to replace 2 or 3 starters. Sounds like they're very high on a true freshman, Ryan Babbitt, which when I looked it up, I believe he could potentially be the first true freshman since Billy Turner to start on the offensive line. If that is, who else are? I believe Griffin Empey and Trent Fraley return.
Yep.
Who else are some guys that are looking to find a spot on that starting 5?
Well, just to go back to Ryan Babbitt, they absolutely should be high on him. 6'5", 308 as a freshman. He's all of that. These guys are, one, it's going to be a test for a new offensive line coach. I think the continuity's built, and I trust the hire. But it's just getting the hard part about offensive line. It's unlike any other position where you're having a position battle where it's, okay, in a glass house one-on-one, is this the best quarterback? Is this wide receiver 1? Is this the best middle linebacker we can put out? Offensive line, it's all dependent on how those 5 operate together. So you have to pick your 5 starters and then have them create that chemistry that needs to be there, kind of the unspoken communication or whatever that is, just to, different things mean, or same thing means different things with different guys. So they're fun to watch. They're big. You can tell there's still a little bit of growing pains to work through. And thankfully it's, I don't know. I'd have to look at the Citadel's record from last year. Not sure about the quality of opponent, but you look at Tennessee State, it's also not good, but it's also not Ferris State or Delaware State to sharpen the knife against. You're going to see a little bit of athleticism. I wouldn't call them tests, but you're going to see at least a look out of those first 2 weeks. So go through some of those growing pains, but man, dude, they're big. Like if you look through the depth chart, it's a lot of 6'5", a lot of 6'6", even at the guard and center spots. Not many Zach Willis is running around here that say 6'3" in the program, and that's that on a good day. But I'm actually 6'4", so I'll take it. I like Empey, and I really, really like Fraley. Just like classic center build, 6'1", 303, but just almost annoying. That's how I would describe his blocking. It's like a gnat that you can never really get off you. And then obviously the prestige, his old man obviously knows football as well. So it's what's really going to be interesting is see how those first 5 gel, and then you never get through a season with the same starting 5 playing every game. So who are 6, 7, 8 that are going to step up and either be the swing guys or, keep pushing those guys if things aren't going well to take spots.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Dan Jackson. He was the offensive line coach. Now he's transitioning over to offensive coordinator, also going to be the tight ends and fullbacks coach. They bring in Dylan Chimura to be the offensive line coach. And now Larson's had 10 years of experience calling plays. I like the change of having him not be the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, just because there's so much on the offensive line that you have to pay attention to where it can take your focus away. So I like that Larson is moving over. I'm just curious. What's your perspective on that? Of Larson moving over and changing position coaches as well. Do you think that's a good move?
Yeah, I think. Well, one, not a good move in the fact that Dan Larson is moving away from the offensive line. He's obviously a very good and competent offensive line coach, but as you know from being around them, and as a lot of people can assume, offensive line coaches are insane and love the offensive line. So if you have an offensive coordinator that thinks like that, every opening script would be 15 plays of power or some variation of inside or outside zone. So it's probably good to step outside of that room a little bit and say, all right, I'm going to take a more comprehensive look about, and I'm not saying Dan would have done what I said, but they are crazy. They do love the offensive line. They love establishing the run. That's why you're an offensive line coach. So letting him spread his wings a little bit, go coach the tight ends and fullbacks who are also psychos, but that'll fit in great. And I'm really interested to see, it's not just a homerism, but being the offensive line coach at NDSU is one of the most coveted jobs in college football in the country. You look at Aaron Blazek leaving a Big Ten school to come here and coach, and you look where he's at now. He's the offensive line coach at Wisconsin. Connor Riley is coaching the offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys. These guys, Scott Fuchs, I don't know where he's at currently, but also high-level FBS guy that coaches the offensive line at NDSU. It's a coveted job, and knowing how much Coach Polisek loves the offensive line too, that was not a hire they took lightly. I believe, I know Chmura's dad was also an NFL guy too, and on a higher level, to step out and change the subject a little bit, on the coaching staff itself, they're loading this thing with guys that have experience, one, in recruiting and kind of knowing the business and world of college football and have that prestige. You have a guy whose dad is in the NFL and is coaching now. Now, the other part of that is all of the former guys that are around the team. Coach Sam O'Jury is coaching the running backs. Marcus Williams is helping out with the DBs. Carlton Littlejohn, Coach Olson. Who else is on the staff right now? Anyway, that list right there. I just didn't want to forget anybody. But those guys, man, like, it really means a lot. Those weren't just slouches that were NDSU football players either. Those are guys that have pictures hanging in the hallways. Exactly. That means a lot to help instill that pride. And when the chips are down and stuff gets tough, it's a lot easier to hear that from somebody did it well than what is quote unquote an outsider.
Yeah. And Scott Fuchs is the assistant offensive line coach for the Tennessee Titans. So doing all right for himself.
Pretty good.
And then the other big question mark was going to be Randy Hedberg retired after a long career. A big reason for the success of that quarterback room was because of Randy Hedberg and the depth of knowledge and experience that guy had. I mean, he's forgotten more about playing quarterback than anybody is ever going to know. They bring in Joe Bishorner.
Yep.
He was the QB coach and OC at Minnesota State Mankato. Don't know a whole lot about him other than that, just kind of when I looked him up here before this
he'd been the
show.
I don't know what year, but he'd been the quarterback or the running backs coach since I was playing. So I got familiar with the program. I don't know if he just ended up with running backs because that was a position that we needed. It sounds like he's a little more familiar with QBs, though. Very, very intelligent, very, very smart guy. Easy to relate to and great with the X's and O's, and those are kind of the makings of a good quarterback coach. But it's also, we've talked about Hall of Fame and Mount Rushmore. Like, Randy Hedberg might be a Mount Rushmore Hall of Famer, North Dakotan. So obviously going to be a void left, but excited to see now what a new coach can do with these talented guys coming in. For sure. But yeah, the offense, I expect them. They're going to put up points. They're going to be a well-oiled machine. And Polisek being an offensive guy only helps, just having his years of experience of being a coordinator. Just something that,
Dan Jackson, he's not going to be a slouch. He called plays for 10 years, but it might be different calling it at a higher level. But let's switch over to the defense here. So Grant Olson is back after his second year calling the defense. I will say that towards the last couple of years of the Ents years, it felt like the tackling was not up to snuff. It felt like last year there was more of an emphasis on tackling, and they seemed to tackle a lot better. There weren't as many missed tackles, and which got back to kind of what we were used to seeing in NDSU defense be. And the defensive line is going to be, I think, is going to be nasty. Losing Cody Huseman is a bit of a big loss, but they still have Jackson Dutenheffer. And the guy that they're really high on that they were able to flip from South Dakota State is Elijah Wayne. That sounds like he's going to be a player early and often for the Bison.
Yeah. It's I don't know how to say this without sound like I'm being disparaging to guys that I have personal relationships with, but it seemed like last year there was just some fun injected back in, and how that relates to is the tackling conversation that you're talking about. It's a lot easier to put 11 hats on a ball on defense when you're having fun and enjoying yourself than it is to like just playing not to lose, right? It seemed like those guys were fired up, and there was just in the grand, like if I can say one defining characteristic of the change, it just seemed like the guys were really, really enjoying themselves being NDSU Bison last year. And that was really fun to watch, to see that switch. It was obviously an emphasis. It lost them games at times in the years previous, not being able to tackle. It just wasn't even an option. You're going to put 11 guys, and if you're not around the football, we're going to find someone who is. And that's a fun characteristic, and what we grew to be accustomed with Code Green in the old days when they were really rolling. But I got to tell you, man, the Toby and Nene is going to be a stud. And then I think my personal favorite player to watch this year is going to be Keenan Wilson. A 6'1", 283, Dutenheffer at 6'2", 289. Just what I've been clamoring for so long is getting those like stocky, hard to move bodies back in at D tackle, because you play in the Missouri Valley Football League. And even if you're a bad team, you are determined and bound to drive the two defensive tackles as the tip of the spear out of the way. And stuff becomes a lot easier for linebackers and DBs when those guys are very hard to move. I will say, everybody keep an eye out for Old Bald Neon Kuru. I butchered that, and I apologize. Number 99, transfer from Iowa State, 5'11", 288. Everybody knows, if you know me, my infatuation with Michael Buto, the snapping turtle, built like a mini fridge. So is our boy Obald. He's going to be my guy to watch this year.
All right, that's number 99. So make sure you keep an eye on him. And it finally feels like too, like, and we kind of sound like old guys, but talking about the early days of the dynasty. But when NDSU was at their best, and it felt like what they were lacking was though that big interior presence that they didn't have in the last year. They finally somewhat got back to it. I expect it to be happen more often this year as well. But the and going back to what you said, like having fun, like when Logan Kopp had that interception last year against South Dakota State to take the rock back, seeing Grant Olson run down to the end zone with the defense to celebrate, it was you didn't see, like you said, there was just some more excitement, like they were having fun and they really enjoyed, it wasn't just like, oh, thank God we won. Like the joy of winning was back in Fargo.
Yeah, and that, truthfully, if you want me to be candid, I was a Tyler Roll for the hire guy. So I was kind of up in the air of, all right, let's see what this Polasek era is going to look like. And when you go through fall camp and you see the first few games, and he's just like on the verge of tears. I'm getting goosebumps right now. On the verge of tears, talking about like hoping his guys have fun. That wasn't, and it wasn't even intentional that they said like when we were there or in the years after that, this isn't enjoyable or this isn't fun. But the pressure built from the foundation that was laid that you couldn't enjoy wins. The only thing you felt was satisfaction that you were only, how do I put this? The enjoyment came from the fact that you didn't have to feel the pain of losing. It wasn't happiness because you won. It was happiness because you didn't lose. And that gets very, very hard over a long period of time to keep guys bought in and do that, especially in this era. If they're like, man, if I can't even, be happy that we won and go find 50 grand in an NIL fund somewhere else. But
Yeah.
like you said, man, it was just, I see Polasek, like I said, just so passionate about getting the most out of these guys and letting them do their thing. It looked like instinctual football. I think I said that to Quinn when we watched the Colorado game together. It was just guys had the nose for the football, and that comes from an enjoyment, a fire, a passion that's lit again. It's like they all fell back in love with football. And this all sounds so dramatic and like I'm talking down on a guy that I love playing for and Coach Entz, and I'm not. But I don't know if anybody could watch those two teams from the year prior to last year and say those, regardless of skill level, those are two teams that are playing football the same way.
Yeah. I go back to when they beat East Tennessee State on the road and they needed that miraculous comeback. And they interview Polasek after the game. And if it were to be even like an Entz or maybe even a Kleiman or a Bowl, where it would have been like, yeah, we didn't play well. Like there's still, but like Polasek came out and he was jacked up like they had just beaten Colorado with the miraculous. Like, no, you know what? We're going to enjoy this win. We're going to enjoy it for the next 24 hours, the plane ride back. We're going to come back ready to work Monday. There's plenty that we can improve on, but the main thing about this is we enjoy this win because I didn't have any expectation. Like it was like 6 minutes. Like I was just angry. I was like, I can't believe we're going to lose to this team. Like our defense, blah. And all of a sudden it's like, it was like the Undertaker gif of like in his coffin and just popping up like, I'm back, baby.
I think what people forgot from those early to mid dynasty years is like, and there's nothing quantifiable behind this, but like I was getting in fights with group chats with my high school friends of like how this team wasn't going to be seated in the playoffs and wasn't going to do anything this year. And like, you guys are forgetting that the Bison are the Bison. They just find a way. And I didn't care that it was East Tennessee State. It could have been anybody. But to also talk about miraculous plays, I'm a firm believer that you create your own luck. Good things happen. You do things the right way. And then, sometimes he'll tip his hat your way. And that was one of those scenarios, I believe. But to the bigger point, man, is just like, these guys are telling me how the secondary sucks and they're not going to win any games and SDSU is going to win by 40. And I understand they're being hyperbolic and, just down because we're losing to East Tennessee State. There's a little bit of kernel of truth. A lot of Bison fans are a little overreactionary. I think we can all come together and say that is the truth.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the number one guy on Twitter. Everybody just calm down. We'll see when the fat lady sings how this thing shakes out. But, until they lose, I am never going to count out the Bison. And that was one of them where I made everybody eat crow because the Bison are the Bison.
You're not the type of guy to do that, though, Zach, are you?
No.
That's luckily where you're not that type of guy.
No, I don't I'm not a receipts guy. But like you said, man, I forgot about that. That's the message you want to hear. And I think it helps fans buy in too. If the head coach isn't enjoying wins, what do you think inclines people in the fan base to do so? It just becomes That's what happens. That's business as usual. It's supposed to happen. But if you see a coach losing his mind in the post-game conference or interview on the sideline after that, where the team objectively did not play well and he's still happy that they won, I imagine you're going to be a little more fired up to pay for that ticket on Saturday and go sit in the tailgating lot.
That's exactly it. And even like I was listening to I don't know if you know who Petros Papadakis is, but he does some play-by-play for Fox, and he was covering the Mountain West Media Days, and he was on Two Pros and a Cup of Joe, and he was talking about Matt Entz, and they were interviewing him because now he's the head coach at Fresno, and talked about how the fans in Fargo, it wore on him, just like the added pressure of like, you won, but you didn't win by enough. And Polasek coming in there is like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. A win, whether you win by a point or you win by 60, it all counts the same in the stat book. It's a win, and it's tough to do. And I say it's the goes back to champagne problems, well, like you said.
Yeah. I say that every year, man. I'm not begrudging people. It is frustrating for me to watch because it's played. We've won 10 of these damn things. This is how it works out. But I understand that people want to be reactionary, and after 3 games say the offensive line isn't good enough to win a national title, or they don't tackle well enough, or they're undisciplined. I will listen to your analysis the second week of January every year.
Yeah.
They find a way to do it. And regardless of, notwithstanding injuries and things like this, they're going to find a way. And if it's not any years that we haven't won the national title, it's been a loss in the semifinal or a loss in the national title. So I understand that the standard is high, but I love when Polasek is like, yes, it's this double-edged sword. You can't say that, the outside noise doesn't matter, but our team internally in this locker room is going to go celebrate this win because I don't care what you guys think. That's how it is. But when you see a guy who's, I think enthusiasm wins people over, man. And you can tell, there's countless things now. And, now that because Polasek recruited me, but I didn't play for him. He was gone before I got there. That I spent more time around him and talked to him. He bleeds green and yellow just like we do. He was raised in this. He became a man in Fargo.
He lived in the Fargo Dome.
Correct. Who else has lived in the Fargo Dome? Not figuratively, literally. He lived there.
Yeah. and he probably would have lived there longer if they wouldn't have figured it out and said, "Hey, you actually need to find a place to live."
Correct. But you look at his intro presser on the radio and he's crying, talking about meeting his wife here and how much Fargo means to him. It's a special place, man, and he treats it as such. And I think, and again, it's champagne problems that I get mad at Bison fans for freaking out, and it's champagne problems that Bison fans feel like they need to freak out after one bad game or one bad series. But it's cool to see in the locker room just the energy and the culture that has kind of been brought up in the Polasek era. And dude, of course it weighs on a guy like Entz as he talks about that. Can you imagine the pressure of doing your job and then a lot of people constantly telling you you're not doing your job good enough? Like, you have to put yourself,
or going up to your family, because I'm sure that happened too.
Within like 6 months of Entz leaving, he lost 50 pounds. And part of that is the job of, the things that came along with being a head coach transitioning into the NIL era. But it also comes with like, all right, I don't have to worry about going to Casey's to get a can of chew and having somebody tell me that the 28-point win wasn't good enough.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, very true. And, but a little bit rounding out the defense here, also losing Enoch Sibama. Enoch, I'll just say Enoch. I'm not going to try to say his last name, but it doesn't seem like, and I think this is just kind of how NDSU has operated and why they've been successful. They're not going to talk about guys that aren't here. They're going to focus on the guys in the locker room. Anybody that leaves, it's an opportunity for somebody to step up. And it's opened the door for a guy like a Donovan Woolen, who is that I don't think you watch a press conference where his name isn't mentioned, along with a guy like a Peter Haugo, who's going to anchor it with the captain Logan Kopp. I think it's one of the deeper linebacker rooms probably in recent years.
Yeah. It's I mean, I don't want people to take it for granted how special Logan Kopp is, just as a person, as a football player, as a Bison. I think we'll look back in retrospect at how good his career was, but just a few times that I've gotten to meet him off the field and my involvement in the alumni program, like, dude, he's what you have in mind when you recruit somebody to be a Bison. So as long as he's there, he's anchoring it down, I feel pretty good. But like you said, and especially at linebacker, obviously there's a lot of cerebral things to be in the right spot at the right time. But if you have long freak shows like Donovan Woolen, 6'4", 219, that can run around and, kind of take your breath away when you watch the All-22, you'll figure things out at linebacker. And I think that's a more fitting characterization of this linebacker room. Pretty excited to see Nathaniel Staling continue to grow his role. The cool part about it, man, is like, I don't know how you felt and, what obviously changes coaching staff to coaching staff and year to year, but as you adapt, you play in the Missouri Valley Football League like we talked about, and you need to thrive on big, heavy D tackles that are hard to move. And things started to change when spread offenses started to become more prevalent, and you started recruiting to be playing into January where you'd see those offenses. But you have guys like Kopp and Staling, and they're thumpers, man. Like, they're coming downhill and they will stick you, which is fun to watch. And that's kind of stuff that wasn't missing, right? I don't want to characterize it that way, but it's just a different kind of player. So if you have somebody in there, no matter what package it is, no matter who's injured, who's healthy, I think this is a fun linebacker room to watch, as you mentioned, because if anything else, you're at least going to see some collisions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very, very reminiscent of the defensive coordinator, because like like I have, because, if I get down, start watching one game, I'm going to watch 5 or 6 more. But like when you watch Grant Olson go and tackle somebody when in his playing days, it hurts you. Like, watching it on TV, it hurt. Yeah. And you see that with some of these guys. And I think a guy like, even like a guy like a Peter Haugo, like, I think he's going to be one of them, that next thumper as well.
Yeah. I think I love it. It's just my meatball football guy brain. Staling just has the look too. He wears 52, has the eye black, has the shoulder brace on. Maybe it's just because I think I'm looking at Travis Beck, but dude, he looks like a Mike linebacker. Just
crazy that if you saw him at a bar, you would not want to get in a fight with him.
6'2",
type of thing, but
238 and the traps behind the ears. I'm not messing with that guy.
No, if you got traps behind, if you can see the traps on a guy, that's just bad news. And then defensive backs as well. Where do you think the defensive back room looks? That was another room that I think was much improved, especially the tackling. Mm-hmm. Will Johnson was a really good addition to that coaching staff. You see there's some names on here with the Najee Nelson, Jalen Duffy, and then they go out and get Booth from James Madison, and they get that Chidemi Alfaro from Cornell. And then at safety they've got Jalen Crumby back, and then it sounds like Taylor Needy's going to be ready to go here soon. Sounds like they got some good news on him. So I think, I guess I'll ask you, if you see a weakness on the defense, where do you think that would be at?
And I guess more of an unknown. I think this secondary is more tied up than it's been in the last few years, so I feel pretty good about that. But like, you look at Toby and Nene, you look at these other DNs, like who's going to be the guy that's just going to go win on a third down? Who's going to go be Greg Menard? Who's going to go be Derek Tuska? Who's going to be Kyle? That's I said it, and as I was saying it, I realized how silly it sounded. Nobody's going to be Kyle Emanuel, but like, who's going to be the dominant edge force that we've come? That, you know, there's just, I think of. I mean, there's a million Greg Menard plays, but you think of Derek Tuska in 19 and SDSU when game day was there.
Yep.
You know, they get the ball back and then he just goes and takes it back. Who is going to be that guy? But outside of health, man, it's guys that maybe we're not 100% familiar with as far as some of these depth pieces, but they're young, but they're fast, they're big. That, I think that was something that really shocked me when I went to practice, is like everybody's big and then all the freshmen look like they're my age. It's like, Jesus, man, you have a mortgage? Like, how are the kids? And he's like, I'm 18. All right. So some real grown men coming into the program. And as we look at corners and safeties too, those, especially at corner, that's a position where a transfer could come in and jump in pretty quickly. And that's more a mentality thing. Like, if you're going to square up and stick somebody in the run game, but you're athletic enough to go cover whoever they throw at you, like, we'll figure it out scheme wise, even if you're maybe a little bit deficient in talent. So I'm excited to see those guys. I think that's probably, the corners are probably the ones that I have the most questions about. I feel even better about the safeties. Talon Edey is a guy that, like, it's not very often that you hear compliments thrown out willy-nilly outside of like public facing conversations. Talon Edey is a guy that they think is pretty special. So I'm excited to see him. Hopefully he bounces back 100% and comes in and gets to prove what he's capable of. But a weakness is a strong term to answer your question. But I think the most exciting position that I'm going to see is one, the edge spot, who's going to go rush the passer, and two, who's going to cover everybody they're throwing to.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about the corners tackling. That's such a big part of the NDSU defense in that cover two scheme where, there were a lot of plays this year where you'd see corners go up and make tackles in the backfield and have a difference. And really, that was a big part of why their run defense was as stout as it was last year. Yep. Was their corners weren't afraid to go up and make tackles against bigger running backs.
And even if it's not going to make a tackle, are you going to stick your nose in there on a bubble screen and force everything back inside to your help? Are you going to not jump it and take the easy way out? Or are you going to, force everything back into where the rest of the bison are? And that's just that's a want to, that's a mentality thing. And it's the little things that add up like that. So I think that's greatly improved. Man, I want my corners to be certified psychos. I want absolute dogs in there. I'll take it if you lose a rep here or there. But I mean, if you come up off of giving some cushion and then stick a dude right between the numbers, like I'll deal with the rest of it.
Yeah. And then looking at their schedule, it's intriguing. I don't know the last time that they started on the road, back-to-back games. And then they also got to go to SDSU and UND. They're really the only like big home game that's circled right now is USD. Now you could maybe say SEMO because they potentially are wearing some new alternate jerseys. It appears it's going to be. I don't know if we're going to see a white helmet, but I think we might see like a white jersey, white pants. I think a green helmet, white jersey, white pants. I think that would look pretty sharp.
I'm going to plead the fifth. I have no interest in being in all white uniform, but I also
that's why I said the green helmet, Zach, because I'm the same way.
It's just the other part of this too, and I don't mean to keep cutting you off. It's don't wear it at home. White is not meant for
You don't like the white jerseys at home?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm
not sure how I feel about it.
I felt like such a curmudgeon-y old man. Like, it's just my automatic assumption that it's going to be all whites. One, they used the frostbitten emoji on Twitter when they released the video, and two, I've seen some convincing screen caps that it's at least a white component to the uniform. And then you see the arguments like the Packers, and I like the Vikings all white, but the Vikings are also kind of candy ass, and they're not my football team. So that's the other part of this. Like, you wouldn't see Alabama in all white. You wouldn't see. I mean, pick your other traditional. You're not going to see USC in all white. I think that the Bison fall into that category, but I think the other part of it too is you're familiar with the surrender whites. When Montana comes in the playoffs wearing all white, you know what time it is. when whoever else comes in, I think ETSU wore all white. I think Western Illinois worn all white.
James Madison has
countless examples, and it's just like, I don't know. I associate that with bad things, so we'll see. I could just see the design, and maybe Under Armour went insane, and it really knocks my socks off, and I reserve the right to change my mind. But all white as an idea, not this design, but just in general, not a fan of.
Unless I do believe they did wear white pants back in the 60s, so maybe it's a play off of what they wore back, similar to when NDSU had the throwback ones. Was that in 21 they wore those, or 22?
I believe
I can't remember the year.
21. And like,
okay,
even that was cool. It was helmets and jerseys, but like, that was poorly executed on the pants. It was the regular pants, but
yeah,
man, if it's if we're all wrong and it's a throwback to those, like, I'm all in. That'd be sick. NDSU has an incredible catalog of throwback uniforms, so if they go back to that, great. But I also understand that, like, there is a recruiting and retainment thing to this, where like, it's hard to sell kids on tradition, I think. So mixing in a uniform switch up like this it does matter to the kids.
I agree with you though. The green and yellow, the helmets, those are the only two helmets they need. Occasionally throwing on Snorty on one of them, or like the one that they had from the 1965, but they don't need a white one. And for the love of God, please, NDSU, do not get an all black uniform. That's how the dynasty dies, is if they go with an all white or all black uniform. You only have black if it's in your color scheme. That's the only reason that you need to wear black, and I'm not for it. We sound like boomers, but it's fine.
That's okay.
I think a lot of people agree with us.
Yeah. All black would really be upsetting beyond even like what this all white one would be, because white is a school color. I can deal with it, but black would be troublesome. And if we're doing the white, just please do not put one of these horrendous, like, oversized logos like the Jackrabbits do or the Gophers do. Just like, truthfully, a white helmet with the Harvest helmet design might look pretty cool.
I would agree with you. Yes, I would agree with that. But again, I think if they were to do if they are going with a white pants, I think the Harvest helmet, white jersey, white pants, I think that would be the look to go with. But yeah, we discussed our schedule, our uniform quota for the day, because we got teased with it, but we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the Valley, and we'll go with our see if and wrap up the show here. But I mean, obviously the rest of the Valley, I think Illinois State looks like they could be they're a sleeper team. They're a top 10 in the FCS poll right now. USD, I think everybody had them as number 2 going in until they were absolutely gutted by the portal. Aiden Bowman did not sign up to come. And I mean, there's just so many questions. I think even SDSU, new coach. They were gutted by the portal, even though they had the strongest culture in college football. That there was no way they were going to get gutted. But they had to supplement through the portal. We've at NDSU. I mean, we've had guys that have hit. We've had some that haven't hit. I mean, if you ask some South Dakota State ball guard, I mean, journalists, they every transfer that has been brought in is the greatest player of all time and is going to be a hit. I don't subscribe to that. The quarterback, I think we could call a spade a spade. I think it's very similar to what NDSU is. Chase Mason, a tremendous athlete. We've seen him run, but we haven't seen him throw the ball a big sample size of how he is as a thrower. And their receivers are nothing to write home about. I mean, their best returner is going to be Graham Gehring, who's okay, but I think he was a product of a lot of teams keying on Griffin Wilde, where Gehring was able to kind of be that guy that was always there. And then also at running back and the offensive line, they aren't what they've been. They also lost their offensive line coach, who's going to be the line coach over at Northwestern, and didn't follow Jimmy Rogers over to Washington State. But I'm not going to sit here and say South Dakota State's going to go below 500. I think they're going to be right there. But, I think this is going to be, I think you're going to kind of see South Dakota State come back more to what they've been historically, especially because there's just so many questions with it being new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, the staff, pretty much it's going to be entirely new staff. What other teams or any of the teams I mentioned, what are kind of your thoughts on the rest of the Valley?
Well, I mean, the thing about the Jackrabbits is it could go one of two ways of, all right, like you said, this is like this transition period. And losing everybody, losing your coach and a bunch of players transferring out is the real first hurdle that the Bison had to overcome. Not necessarily the portal at that time after Kleiman left, but like they're finding out the trials and tribulations that come with trying to stay on top and seeing that it's not easy to do. So you go and dump a bunch of money into free agency in the portal, and I'm sure Zach Borg will tell me that I'm wrong, that everybody's really good, and it's they're losing because of other circumstances, and that guy sucks, by the way. But
there's a few of them.
Yeah, whatever. I deal with them, but
they're fun to piss off.
They sure are, and it's easy to do.
Their shit talking game is way below us.
Yeah, and it's really strange that they are supposed to be objective journalists covering, impartially. At least that's what the big J's do. But those guys are very, very clearly Jackrabbit fans, and there are other circumstances dealing with Zach Borg of why he hates NDSU so much. But the hard part about the Missouri Valley is that everybody's scrappy. I'm really interested to see how USD did come out of it, because I think they were going to be a top 4, if not top 2 team going into this year, had they not been gutted the way they did. And the weird part about them is just they're retaining pretty well, and then it was just like a slow trickle, then one guy, and then one guy, and then the next domino, and then the next guy, and then next thing you know, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen are gone, or whatever the number ended up being. But just kind of a slow attrition for them. And man, I've heard ugly stuff about the SDSU exit and Jimmy Rogers on his way out, which is strange to me. So what is the state of that program? I don't know. What is UND going to be? Is Eric Schmidt going to jump in some life into this team, or is it going to be what we've come to expect? All I know is I'm not looking forward to going up Grand Forks. But maybe these burners that say that I'm on the Mount Rushmore of people they want to punch will try to find me. I can put a name to a face. That'd be interesting.
That's a badge of honor. I'd wear that with pride. We could get some shirts printed for that.
I was drafted the pick after Hitler, I think, of people they want to punch in the face.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Must be doing my job well on Twitter to piss off the nameless, faceless opponents. But other notes, I like I said, you really never know in the Valley who's going to be sticky. I mean, it's you could go out and play in Terre Haute and have it be within 3 scores. I don't think that'll be the case, but that's just how the Valley is. Other interesting part is I want to see what St. Thomas looks like playing a full schedule. That's going to be interesting to me.
Yeah, that is because I think that's a team that I think everybody in the Missouri Valley because there's a lot of teams that recruit in the Twin Cities, and I think they have the ability, they have the funds to go and kind of utilize those to keep guys that are home. Because it's outside of the Gophers, there's no other Division I team in Minnesota, so I think they're going to be able to get some. I wouldn't be shocked if they tried to. Right now they're not going to be their non-scholarship, but kind of with the amount of money they have, I would expect them to potentially, maybe they are a team that moves up to the Missouri Valley in football, but I think in basketball, I wouldn't be shocked if they, in the next 10 years, we're looking at them as a school that's going to be playing in the Big East potentially, joining the private schools there. But
well, that's the thing, man. I think they have the logistics and the foundation to do it and the support. It's just, what does this transition period look like? And we'll get a better look at that of them going through a full season and then playing NDSU at the end. Other note is bye week 4 after non-con going into the Valley's big time too. You hope for it kind of in the middle to split up the conference schedule, but getting your legs back underneath you before starting the real push into the Valley schedules is big time.
Yeah. But it's going to be here soon. It's going to be intriguing, exciting season. We got football already starting this Saturday as Farmageddon takes place over in Ireland. So we got, I think, good chunk of games. But and even like if you go look at the Big Sky, I think Montana State's going to be they're going to be right there. Montana is a team that's probably looking to bounce back after a little bit of a down year. The big thing with Montana is they never seem to be able to get the quarterback right. I mean, Clifton McDowell was. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he was good because I didn't think he was anything special. But if Montana was ever able to get the quarterback right, I think that's a team that I would have a little bit higher up. Montana State, they're going to be really good. Even though they got hit pretty hard by the portal, but I think they were able to supplement fairly well. Other than that, though, I really don't know. I think there's going to be 4 teams. It's going to be the same Final Four as last year, probably.
It kind of bums me out looking at the top 25, honestly, and the teams that are there, of like how powerful the FCS was 15 years ago, and where it's at now. But it is what it is, man. I mean, like I'm looking at Tarleton State at number 10. That does nothing for me. You start looking at the rest of them. It's just like, what are we even doing here? But such is life. It's not bankruptcy. You can't just declare it that I am in FBS. And, speaking of the FBS, I was wondering what the spin is in Ann Arbor after these sanctions came down. Is it Connor Stallion still a hero and all this?
Like I have said before, and I'll continue to say, find somebody who loves you as much as Connor Stallions loves Michigan. But no, the Ohio State fans are quite a bit in shambles about this. A team that it's interesting, a team that just won a national title. All they sit here and talk about is Michigan.
So that's
the problem is that there's way too many Ohio State fans that have grown up now where they actually think beating Michigan is their birthright.
Sure.
And now that Michigan has the upper hand, Ohio State fans have no idea of what to do. Because the same people that are claiming this I remember the Saturday after Thanksgiving because I'm a loser after Michigan beat Ohio State as 21-point favorites in Columbus, or underdogs in Columbus. I turned on a call-in show in Columbus, and I sat there and laughed as caller after caller talked about how awful Ryan Day is, how we need to get him out, how he needs to be deported to Siberia. They need to do anything they can to bring Urban Meyer back. They win a national title, and he's the greatest coach of all time.
That's college football in a nutshell.
Yeah,
But
it is.
The only thing that hurts your guys, like, I think I saw Portnoy talk about it. Like, it does give them a nod that they won the national title the year after. So, like, you guys stop cheating, and then it goes to a 12-team playoff, and Ohio State wins it. But I mean, really the bragging rights is the game. So I mean,
it is.
Obviously you can trade national titles, but you guys have whooped that ass the last few years, so not much they can say.
The guy that has to be the most pissed off about that has to be John Cooper, because if you go look at his teams that he had in the 90s where they'd have like no losses or one loss, and Michigan would go, and he couldn't beat Michigan. But like, I guarantee you with the teams that he had, if they had a 12-team playoff back then, he would probably have 2 or 3 natties.
Right.
But
yeah, I was just curious, because it was all about the haters and the losers and the fake news, and then Sharon Moore, and I mean it's very obvious that Michigan just produces these type of men that hide their phones or destroy evidence. You look at the jersey behind you, and it's just maybe a Michigan man isn't as great as we think they are.
Oh, that's not true. That's just somebody that's loyal to the fault.
Right.
They live by the sword and die by the sword, Zach. But we'll wrap up this show here with one. We talked about McFeely's list of the 75 games. Now, and we talked about just recently about the what the FCS was 15 years ago. Now, if there is one team that you wished NDSU would have been able to play back when the FCS was at its height, who would that team have been?
You're saying also previous FCS team?
Yes. Yep.
Man. I mean, how weird do you want to get with this question? Because like Marshall was rolling back in the days.
I'm thinking more of like where NDSU was in the FCS, but they weren't eligible to be in the playoffs.
Sure. I mean,
we could
say had good teams at that time. I think they were.
Yep.
I think that team around it had to have been around 09 or 10. That's that team that went and beat a ranked Virginia Tech team.
Yep.
At Virginia Tech, and then the other one obviously is, I mean, in 07, your boys. If that team could have went and played App State, that probably would have been a pretty special matchup.
Well, as I was watching that NDSU Minnesota game, that 07 game, and they as the game was getting closer towards the end, and they bring up, well, this would not be the first time that a Big Ten team has lost to an FCS opponent, and I was just like, God dang it, I can't escape. Even though Michigan's played them after that and still beat them, but. Yeah, that year, that was going to be that 07 Michigan team. I was like, this is the year that they were going to win a national title, and they start 0-2, and it was like, whew, they get the doors blown off them at home. But that App State team, the other one that I think we were cheated out of would have been in 13, that Eastern Washington team, just to get that revenge on them from really become a full circle moment.
Yeah, if you want to go historical, I think that's a fun conversation of like best versus best. But like, if NDSU could have played McNair with Alcorn, that would have been sweet.
Oh,
if you could have played Marshall with Randy Moss, that would have been sweet. Man, I'd have to do some more thinking on the real. Oh, I mean, like saw Jerry Rice play Mississippi Valley State. They get real weird with it, but yeah,
Walter Payton at Jackson State.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think kind of in that era, though, of we played
Villanova. That's a team that for some reason I've always wanted NDSU to play is Villanova.
Yeah. We played Villanova Light every year in the playoffs. It felt like a University of San Diego, same colorway in there, just like the
That's
West Coast
good
Villanova.
call. Yeah.
I wish that was it 09? No, 08, 07? Yeah, the 07 team. That lost to SDSU last game of the year.
Yep.
I wish they would have got another crack at SDSU. That might be my answer.
Oh yeah. That's a good one. That is a good one. Even those Montana teams in those early 2010s, middle of the 2000s were some salty teams as well.
Yeah.
But
that 07
Zach,
team is to interrupt you on your outro. I apologize.
No, you're good.
So, some all-time NDSU football games in there. Stephen F. Austin at home, and then
Sam Houston.
Then the Sam Houston game. Yeah, Central Michigan that year. That was a fun team.
Yeah, that Sam Houston game. I still remember that game. That was one of the most insane games that I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Well, like Rhett Bomar, who was like the year before was like a sleeper height, was supposed to be the starting quarterback at Oklahoma, and the guy that a lot of people were like, yeah, he could be. He's like a Heisman front runner right now, and he hasn't played it down yet, and he's playing Sam Houston State in Fargo. It was like, oh geez.
Yeah. That's funny.
But all right, well, Zach, this was fun. We'll definitely have you on in the playoffs. We'll have to do a championship preview again. Maybe I hopefully have you on sooner than that. But thank you again for joining us. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in. We'll talk to you next time.